Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I'm here on the Chris Howell Show.
Joel, thank you so much for the opportunity to sit and talk with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. As we get into this, aside from your many areas of responsibility, I like to make sure that folks understand who someone is aside from what they do. So tell us, who is Joel Osteen?
Well, I guess first of all, I'm a father. I have 2 children. I'm a husband to Victoria, and I'm pretty easygoing. What people see on the screen, I think, is really who I am. I'm just pretty laid back and just love the Lord and love people.
Yes, yes. Speaking of loving the Lord, you are the pastor of the largest Protestant church in the United States. Now, as a little boy growing up, what did you hope to be?
Yeah, I never dreamed I would be a minister. I liked television production. You're talking about seeing the guys behind the scenes, making us all look good. I love doing that. I love doing that for my father. And I thought that's what I'd do with my life. At least in my teens, that's what I had a desire to do, to edit and to produce. And I'd travel with my dad and do a lot of things like that. And that's what I did for 17 years.
Yes. Until
my dad died. And then I knew I was supposed to step up and pastor the church. And here we are today.
Yeah. And talk about pastoring the church. I mean, now we're 16, is it 16 years later?
Yeah, it's 16 years later. My dad died in 1999 in January. And so, I took over the church with Victoria, never having really ministered before. Yes. Always behind the scenes and never dreaming that it would grow. We just hoped that we could maintain what my dad had built and my mom had built. But it began to grow, and now I've been doing it, like we said, for quite a few years. And I just feel very blessed. And as part of our message is that God's dream for your life is bigger than your own. Because I never dreamed I would be here. I didn't think I had a gift or the talent to get up and speak in front of people. And so it's why I try to encourage people that you have things in you that you don't know you have.
Yeah.
When you have that boldness and you take a step of faith, you never know where God's going to take you.
Man, you just said something that led me to want to shift to your book. This new book, I believe this is your 7th book.
I think so, right?
The Power of I Am. You talked about the fact that you didn't think that you had the ability to stand in front of people to speak. Is that part of you speaking? Is, I guess, what led you being able to do it and do it so successfully? Yeah. Is it what you said to yourself, talking about like what we talk about in The Power of I Am?
Absolutely. It's those same principles. Because when I took over and go up there to speak on a Sunday, every voice inside would say, "Are you crazy? You haven't been to seminary. These people don't want to listen to you, and you're a behind the scenes guy." But I had to turn it around. I am, the I ams. I am strong. Yeah. I am anointed. I am equipped. And I tell people, if you don't talk to yourself the right way, then you can talk yourself out of your dreams, or your thoughts can talk yourself out of your dreams. So that's a big principle of the I am.
Yes. Yeah. You talk us through that in some 19 chapters of this book. Let's talk about a little bit about the title of the book and how this particular book came to be. I mean, again, we stated you've got a number of books out there, #1 on New York Times best-selling list. Let's talk about the process of writing this particular one. What led to it?
Well, what led to it, Krystal, just a lot of people that I talk to and come in contact with, it seems like they're negative toward themselves. And some of them, they don't know any better because it's the way they were raised. And just there's a little recording playing that says, I am slow, I am not attractive, I am unlucky. I just believe we're inviting the wrong things into our lives, especially when we speak them. And so the power of I am, the subtitle is 2 words that can change your life. Really, it's what follows the I am. Yeah. I believe it'll eventually find you, come looking for you. So, when you say I am blessed, blessings come looking for you. I am strong, strength comes looking for you. So I think when you turn it around and have the right I ams, your life's going to go in the right direction.
Okay. And you may have gave us a sneak peek a moment ago, but I guess the question would be, at what point in your life did you have to declare that statement to yourself? I am whatever that is.
Yeah, probably the most important is when my dad went to be with the Lord, and I knew that I was supposed to step up and do something that I didn't feel qualified to do. It's funny how sometimes, I think every person has felt it before, your mind will tell you there's no way, but down in your heart, in your spirit, something says to do it. And so there's that battle taking place, and I think sometimes we can give into our mind, the natural, but I took that step of faith, and I think that's when I had to do it more than ever. Yeah. And there were times I'd look at myself in the mirror and say, Joel, you are equipped, you're well able to do this. I just talk, really, I can do all things through Christ, I'm strong in the Lord. The I ams, they should line up to what God says about us. And again, the principle too, Chris, is the scripture says to let the weak say I'm strong. meaning that you don't necessarily have to say what it looks like in the natural or how you feel. You should make declarations of faith. You may not feel talented, but when you play that recording in your mind, I am talented, I am creative, I am disciplined, it does something on the inside.
Yes. One of the things we always want to do on the Krystal Show is to give folks steps and principles to help empower them. You talked about the process of having to speak positively to yourself. Give us some more principles that you applied throughout this process, because again, this was a huge platform you were stepping up on, from the guy who was running the cameras to this huge platform.
I know. Well, I think getting down to practicalities, I think, it's important how we start the day. I really believe that we should, it's easy to get up out of bed and think, man, I don't feel like going to work, and I'm getting so old, it's easy to just be against ourselves. I think at the start of the day, it's so important to say, okay, I'm going to start this day grateful. I'm going to get up and say, Lord, thank you that I'm alive, or thank you that I'm healthy, or whatever we have to be grateful for. I think, you put that principle into motion early in the first part of the day, and I believe it helps the day to go better. But I think that's, then I go through in the book, and people can come up with their own, but I go through a list of 20 or 30. But, I just think it's good to rehearse that on a practical basis all through the day. And, even if you have to write some of them out, whatever resonates with each individual, but, just to always be meditating on it, that I am strong, I am blessed, I am victorious. Another good one is I am forgiven. A lot of people think, I've done so much wrong, but you got to get that going in the right direction.
Yeah, I like that whole spirit of guilt. I mean, I think you alluded to it. That's one of the things that really holds us back as individuals, because again, we feel like I'm the only one who's messed up. There's no way God can love me. But that's so untrue.
It really is. And, the scripture says the enemy is called the accuser of the brethren. So, there's that constant thought of, just what you said, I blew my marriage, or I did this, or, this is for everybody else. But you got to let go of the old. You got to let every day be a new beginning. And we can't do anything about yesterday, but we can do something about right now. And I really believe that God's mercy is bigger than any mistake we've made. I mean, He already knew we were going to make the mistake. God has the solution, the mercy. But can we forgive ourselves? Can we move forward and say, hey, this is a new day. I can still become who I was created to be.
Man. We talked about this being your 7th book. Is there a process? Do you have a system now in which you go through to now sit down to write a book?
I really do, Chris. I have a lot of the material comes from when I'm studying to prepare my messages.
Okay.
And so I'll categorize things and think, I've got my next 2 or 3 books kind of lined out of where I'm going with them. So I'm always writing and filing away. I don't write it all at once. I write it over a period of 2 or 3 years, and then come back and compile it.
Okay. What do you attribute the success of your ministry to?
Well, I think there's different things. Obviously, we give God the credit. It was His favor and His sovereignty. I think part of it is I do recognize my parents spent 40 years building Lakewood, burying people, marrying people, going to the hospital. I mean, there's a lot of seeds that they've sown that I'm reaping the benefits today, 40 or more than 40 years later. So I recognize that. I think part of it, on another side, the message is very practical. It's, I think it can help people that weren't raised in church like me. And that's always been my goal, is how do I get outside of the church walls? I used to play basketball a lot at the YMCA with a bunch of guys when my dad was the pastor. And they didn't necessarily know they knew I was a Christian, but they didn't know I was a preacher's kid or anything. But, when I took over from my father, I thought one day, soon these guys are going to see me on television, because my dad had a television program. And I thought when they hear me, I want to make sure they know what I'm talking about, and that it's not too much doctrine, or not too much what I just grew up, we can get that Christianese where people don't understand it. So I think part of it is half the people that watch us don't go to church, or weren't raised in church, and so that's who I'm trying to reach. So I'm trying to make it very practical and relevant. How do you forgive? How do you have a good attitude? How do you believe that God has a plan and a purpose for you? So I don't know, it's a long answer, but that's what I'm doing.
No, it's a great answer, because actually it gives you another point to that person who may be stuck in a rut right now, who feels that, I can't get beyond whatever it is that's got me placed in this rut. What do you say to them?
Well, I would say change your thought process. Get up every day and say, you know what, God has something better in store for me. Take the limits off of God. I think many times, Chris, we limit ourselves in, I don't have the education. Mine was, I don't have the talent. I'm not a public speaker, or I come from the wrong family. There's a million things. I've made too many mistakes. First thing you got to do, if you can't conceive it on the inside, I don't think you'll see it happen on the outside. So it starts down in here to say, you know what? Okay, I feel stuck, but I believe God has something good. I think the other thing is be your best right where you are. be content where you are, be your best. I mean, Joseph, 13 years was in prison and betrayed and all that, but you know what? In the end, God vindicated him. And I'm not saying things happen overnight, but if you can pass those tests, but I think a lot of it, it's easy to get negative, discouraged, and settle where we are. You got to break out of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Final question for you, Joe. No doubt, when the history books are written, it'll be said that you pastored the largest Protestant church in the United States. It'll be said that you have impacted the lives of millions of people through your television ministry, your books, satellite radio station that you have there. But aside from all of that, what do you want to be best remembered for?
Well, I would want to be remembered as somebody that loved his family, somebody made the world a better place. I think I'd want my ministry, my life to be remembered as somebody that lifted people, lifted the fallen, helped restore the broken, helped people to reach their dream, really as a healer, as a lifter, something like that.
Man. Joel Osteen,
Thank
you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
Coming up on the next episode of The Chris Howell Show.
I remember not knowing what to do, and my mother said, don't give up on your dreams. Never give up on your dreams because you die. She said, what you did was you set a goal for yourself and you hit it early, and then you didn't know what else to do. She said, set a new one. Each time you got to continuously set new goals. And so every time I've gone somewhere and I thought it was great, I'm like, well, I got someplace else I need to go.